What's up, Noles fans? It's game week. We got Florida State heading to Raleigh to take on number 14, NC State. And this is Talkin Noles, a new podcast that I've started. As always, I'm your host, Brandon Eisenman. You can find me on Twitter at Eisman. You can also find me over at Last Word on College Football, where I cover the Florida State Seminoles. And you can find me right here on Talkin Noles every single day of the week. We're going to have game previews, game recaps, analysis, film breakdowns, interviews with FSU media members, and a bunch of other content. So if you're watching this on YouTube Live, please smash that subscribe button. And let's get right in this game preview, y'all. This Saturday, Florida State travels to Raleigh to play ACC foe NC State. Florida State and NC State are both coming off losses. The Seminoles lost at home 31-21 to Wake Forest, and NC State lost on the road at Clemson 30-20. Now, in terms of where Florida State is going into this game, I think injury-wise, Bless Harris is still out. Jared Verse will most likely play. Robert Scott, we don't know. Robert Cooper, we don't know what's going to go on there. And then NC State, when you look at them, the Wolfpack struggled last week mightily, especially on offense, trying to move the ball down the field. Now, granted, Clemson has a really, really effective and elite defense. Clemson's defensive front is one of the best, if not the best, in all of college football this season, and it's been that way for a couple of years. Clemson's D-line is just filled with elite talent all across the board. Their entire defense is really, but when you break it down and look at their defensive line for the Tigers and what they were able to do against NC State, the way that NC State was just stopped in its tracks and wasn't able to effectively move the ball down the field the way they would have liked to in certain situations really goes to show that they are beatable, that their offensive line isn't as good as we all thought it was, and that Florida State, their defense can get through and get pressure on Wolfpack quarterback Devin Leary and make him throw incomplete passes, stuff the run, and force NC State to become a one- or two-dimensional team. Now, on this past Saturday, Florida State struggled stopping Wake Forest in their slow mesh offense that they run. That offense that the Demon Deacons run had the Noles defense looking puzzled because of the delay in handoffs on running plays to the running back. And even when Sam Hartman would, pull the handoff back and throw it, Florida State just looked puzzled, like they didn't know what was happening because the plays took so long to develop due to the offense that Wake Forest ran. But this week, thankfully, NC State does not run that, and the Noles will, or they should have, an easier time, getting into the backfield, getting pressures, and getting the crucial stops, especially on second and third down that they need to get the ball back to the offense. Now, going over to the offense for Florida State, Jordan Travis has obviously been really, really good this season. He did get injured in the Louisville game, as we all know, but he came back, played against Boston College, played against Wake, and now he's going to play at NC State. So I think with Travis under center, the Noles are in a good spot. As always, they have been since he came from Louisville. And at running back, you've got a three-headed monster in Trayshawn Ward, Trey Benson, and Lawrence to a Philly, that each of those guys are dynamic in their own way. And if Florida State can run the ball effectively, especially early in the game, I think that sets the tone for play action passes, Jordan Travis to be able to scramble out of the pocket. Hopefully the offensive line is healthy enough to give Travis and the rest of the offense the boost that they need to be able to have time in the pocket, open up running holes down the field at the line of scrimmage, things of that nature. Because this game against NC State is going to be a fight. It's going to be a close game. The Wolfpack are favored by 3 points as of Wednesday evening when I'm recording this. This is an 8 o'clock Eastern kickoff time on the ACC network, so 7 o'clock Central, 8 Eastern. I know it's kind of a late game, but it's prime time Central time. Now, in terms of points per game and how these teams stack up statistically, Florida State averages 34.2 points per game, and NC State is averaging 32.8. Now, you can't really base that off of that and say, oh, Florida State's going to score 34, 35, and NC State's going to score 31, and your final score is going to be 35, 31. You can't do that. That's not the way to go about it. All of the analytical data and things like that go into, figuring out how teams, how often they score, how many points they average, things like that. It's irrational to say that final score is going to be 35, 31 or whatever, just because of the points per game stat. Now, points allowed per game, Florida State does give up 21.2, and NC State is allowing 15.4. But again, they allowed 30 against Clemson. But granted, Clemson is a top 5 team in the country for a reason. They're a really good team, as is NC State, but the Wolfpack just couldn't get it done. Now, what we've seen from FSU this season has been nothing short of great. Aside from last week, and even in last week's game, I thought even though the offense struggled early and they were down 21-7 at the half, they made a comeback, couldn't get it done, especially late in the fourth quarter. They had 1 or 2 drives where they should have, could have went down the field and scored, and they just missed opportunities. That's really all it is. Wake, especially in the fourth quarter, got to Jordan Travis. They made him rattled, forced incompletions. Wake Forest did what Wake Forest needed to do as far as their game plan went to be able to take down Florida State and get that win. Florida State still has not beaten Wake Forest since, I believe, 2018, which is a crazy stat, or it might have been 2016. I don't remember. It was either 18 or 16, but either way, Florida State suffered a loss last week. They're now out of the top 25. But hey, a win here on Saturday in Raleigh gets you back into the top 25, right? You're still in the ACC Atlantic Division race with Wake, Clemson, and NC State. If you win this game and you get Clemson next week at home in Doak Campbell, it's a night game, 7:30 Eastern kick. If you win at least one of these next 2 games, you're in a really good spot. If you're 5-2 after the Clemson game, you're doing really, really good. But Florida State cannot afford to lose this game on Saturday, because if you start out 4-3 after this, I mean, yes, that's still good given the remaining schedule, but you still have to play Syracuse. You still got to play Florida. And that really –
The 2 played on January 2nd, 1999, with Florida winning –
My Apple Watch decided to speak to me about Florida and Syracuse for some reason. Anyway, like I was saying, if you're Florida State, you'd rather come out at 5-2 in this after this 3-game stretch of Wake, NC State, and Clemson. You'd really like to come out at 6-1, but the likelihood of that is very minimal given the fact that you've got 2 really, really tough teams and one on the road on Saturday. Now, what does FSU need to do in order to beat North Carolina State? Like I said a minute ago, I think this game is going to be close. I think it could come down to a field goal, but to get to that field goal to win the game, Florida State is going to have to, number one, move the ball effectively on offense to not only keep pace with NC State, but get ahead, hopefully early in the game or, right at halftime or after halftime, and keep a lead. And then if NC State ties it up, say late in the fourth quarter, you go down the field, you set up Ryan Fitzgerald for a field goal. Now, he is 44% on the season. He's 4 of 9, which isn't, that good of a stat for Noles fans to want to hear. But if you give him a chip shot, right inside the red zone, I mean, he's probably going to make it, and Florida State wins the game 23-20, comes out of Raleigh with a big win, goes back to Tallahassee and gets ready for Clemson. Hopefully it goes that way. Hopefully the Noles come out with a win. But again, the offense has to play effective enough to keep up with NC State. If NC State scores first, Florida State needs to go down the field and score. This needs to be a toe-to-toe game. And on the other side of that, on the defensive side for the Noles, getting pressure on Devin Leary is the key to this. NC State does not have a very effective run game. Demi Sumo Cargnaby has, I think, 200 and just over 200 yards on the season and like 3 touchdowns on 44 carries. NC State as a team has just over 600 total rushing yards. Florida State has 1,019. That's not to say that NC State doesn't run the ball. They just don't run it effectively enough to pad the stat line and help the running game complement the passing game when it's working. NC State relies on Devin Leary so much that it almost hurt them in week 1 against East Carolina. They only won that game 21-20. And Devin Leary was, thought of as a potential Heisman candidate, a potential All-ACC selection. And to me, he just hasn't played like that. He hasn't been overly, over-the-top impressive, but he's been good enough to get North Carolina State to a 4-1 record. Now, granted, their biggest win right now is against Texas Tech, but that was a close game as well. And then the loss to Clemson last week, Leary didn't play great. I watched that game, and he was running for his life on some of those plays. He would scramble out of the pocket to either side of the field, and Clemson was right there on his tail. I think that's what Florida State needs to do. The Noles are going to have to get pressure on him, blitz. If Alex Atkins has to blitz the house against NC State, then so be it. Do it, because NC State's really a one-dimensional team already. If you take Devin Leary out of the equation and you contain him and he can't do anything, they're going to have to start running the ball. And if you only give up, 1, 2, or 3 yards per carry, the defense, that's a win for Florida State, I think. But to wrap this up, I think this is going to be a tough game for the Noles. They've lost in Raleigh before. It'll probably happen again. Hopefully not on Saturday, but later in future years, it's going to happen. Florida State, yes, they're improved from a couple of seasons ago, but the loss to Wake last week may still be in their minds. It might still be the mindset that, hey, we lost to a really good Wake team. We're going to go in here, and that game is still lingering on our minds, and we don't play as well on Saturday in Raleigh. Hopefully, Mike Norvell and the coaching staff get the players moved on past Wake Forest and prepped enough for NC State to where they come out and play a dominant performance. I would love to see Florida State win this game, by 7, 10, 13 points. But I just don't think it'll be that way. I think the Noles and the Wolfpack are both going to keep this a close game. I could see it also coming down to turnovers, especially in the second half. Whichever team has the last turnover, I think that could do them in. If there's 2 minutes left and NC State throws a pick and it's a tie game, Florida State goes down the field, kicks field goal, and wins. Vice versa with NC State, and Florida State having the ball. If Jordan Travis, throws an interception or fumbles the ball, or one of the running backs fumble or something, and NC State's in, good field position, it could go that way too. NC State could go down the field and win. But I think this will be one of the best games to watch on Saturday, even though it is on the SEC network and not on ESPN or ABC. But if you're a Noles fan, definitely tune into this game. I know a lot of the fan base will. Actually, all of the fan base will. And if you're just a college football fan in general, this is a really, really good matchup to watch. There's a lot of solid talent in this game to watch, future NFL stars. And this is a battle for really third place right now in the ACC, because Clemson is obviously up there. They're undefeated. And then Wake Forest has the one loss to Clemson. But Wake beat Florida State, and NC State lost to Clemson as well. So you got a battle of 4-1 teams here. I'm excited to see what the Noles can do in Raleigh on Saturday. I'm anxious. I cannot wait for this game to get here. Should be a really good, fun battle. Like I said, we're going to have content here every single day on Talkin Noles. Tomorrow, I'm going to go through the offensive keys to the game a little more in depth. And then on Friday, I plan on doing the defensive keys. And then Saturday, I'm just going to do a little pregame live stream show. It's probably going to be an hour or so before kickoff. So at around 6 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern, I'll go live and do a little pregame show. And like I said, if you guys are watching this live on YouTube right now, please subscribe, smash that subscribe button, share this with, other Noles fans. If you have any college football or ACC fans or Florida State, NC State fans, share this out. Let's get the word out. Talkin Noles is here. And once again, guys, I'm your host, Brandon Eisenman. I'm excited to be doing this. Florida State is a lot of fun to watch. I love covering the team. I love doing podcasts. And, spreading my information about the Noles is a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed this. I hope you guys did as well. And I'll be back tomorrow on Thursday, October 6th, with the offensive keys to the game for the Noles. So until then, y'all, bye-bye.